Hi guys, right, today we're going to be doing the first of 3 tutorials on basic chipping for yourselves. Now, there's many different ways of doing it. These are 3 that I learned through different channels on YouTube and just experience. And 2 of them are going to be using airbrush techniques. One of them, for those of you that don't have an airbrush yet, even though I highly recommend you get one, we're going to be using a third effect that doesn't need an airbrush, and it's also quite easy to use when you're running low on time. Anyway, first one we're going to do is that simple one, and I've got 3 identical pieces here from Mantic, which is the Dead Zone terrain, and we're going to do the first one just by brush. I primed them all in black. I'm going to give them all the same paint color cover. So I think Ultramarines Blue will be good because it'll be useful for those of you who play Ultramarines to use them on vehicles. So I'll go away. I shall prime up the first one in the colours, and we shall go straight into how to chip and how to do underlining and how to do all the basics for that one. Second one, we're going to use a very old-fashioned technique with hairspray. Simple hairspray and table salt. Alright, so this we'll be using an undercoat on top of this. We'll be using some browns and some oranges just to give it a pre-rusted effect. Sorry. Then we'll we'll show you how to use these over the top of it. Put the top coat over that, and then from there onwards, we'll show you how to chip on that one. And finally, we will use the AK Interactive chipping and heavy chipping fluid. So for smaller scratches, for more subtle effects, we've got the chipping stuff, and the heavy chipping for obviously bigger chunks coming off. And then of course we've got the Vallejo version as well, which we don't really need to show off, but we'll maybe quarter off a panel of this as well and put some on for you. That way you can see the difference between all the different techniques, all the different ways to use these products, and might give you some ideas of things you've got around the house as well. But this is one of the ones that comes from the world of model making. It's been around for a long, long time, and the other fluids basically just replicate this. They do the same thing. They just cost a lot more. And sometimes they're a bit more forgiving, and sometimes they're a bit easier to control. But this worked well for me from the beginning. Doesn't have to be this brand. Any brand of hairspray. Just get yourself down to your local pound store and get yourself some of those. And then we'll do some streaking effects as well, but that might be a video for tomorrow. We're going to do this in 3 parts because each of them can be a bit in depth. So I'll get back to you as soon as I've got these ready, and we can go from there. Talk to you soon. Okay guys, we're back. I have primed up, well, base coated up our test piece. Just a very, very simple blue gradient on here. And we will start off with the first part of the chipping. Now, I'm sure lots of you have this stuff lying around. If not, you can get yourself a kitchen sponge and do exactly the same thing. This stuff just happens to be in bin liners around my room from all my cases. And I couldn't think of a better use for it. So, tear yourself off a chunk. Hold on a sec, see if I can get you a bit more into there. Right, tear off a chunk and make the edge of it as random as you can. What you're doing is you're basically building yourself a chipping brush. Now, once you've done this, you're going to be looking for a dark brown or a dark reddish brown color. Now, this is my favorite color to use, which is Vallejo Model Air Cam Black Brown. I go through this by the gallon, but it gives me the effect I'm looking for, and I can always add, if it's too light, I can always add a little bit more extra black to it. So, start off, just get a little bit on your homemade brush and dab off your excess. The wetter the brush is, the bigger the chips you're going to leave. Right, so you want to get quite a lot of it off, and then you just find somewhere with an edge, and you start pressing it in. And as you can see, it will start to transfer onto the model. So grab an edge as well, and this will start to give us a good random chipping effect. The other idea is to turn it every so often so you don't get the same pattern all the time. And this is very easy to overdo, and you'll see why overdoing it isn't the best idea in a minute when we go back. Now I'll get a little bit more on my brush because I want the bigger chips at first. So again, you're pressing very, very lightly, almost not touching the model at all, and concentrate around the edges where there would be a lot of wear. So you can do this on your vehicles, even on power armor, standard armor as well. Just vary the colors that you're using. We'll get up in here, and you can see there we've got 3 almost identical chunks. Now we can go back onto it, rotate our brush a little, rotate it again, and we can blend those out so that they're not as uniform. Okay, and as you start getting the hang of this, you can start speeding up. Again, very, very light pressure. All you're doing is transferring it off this, and off the very peaks of your brush that you've built, onto your model. And we'll get this through on these. In the next section, I'm not sure how it's going to show up on camera, but we're going to be doing some underlining as well. So that's your basic chipped up, weathered up piece of terrain. Now you can also add your own scratches and bullet marks. Right here, if I want to add a bullet mark, I just put it onto there as a dot, and then I take the fractures out, and keeping those fractures quite thin will help you control what you're actually doing, and that will give you a little bullet mark, which won't look too bad, but it's going to look a lot better in a minute. And then we have some just standard scratches. Some very fine marks. Again, just try and keep it random. Work out where things might have been, like around here that would need a bit more, because this would be going up and down, and it's quite a large protrudence. Right. So once you've got that done, I'll see if I can work out how to zoom this for you. Bear with me a second. Will this zoom? I don't know, but we can try. Yay, we can get a bit of zoom in there. Not a lot, but we don't need a lot. Okay. Right, so now we're a little closer. Now, what you do next is you get your base color. For this base one, I used a Mediterranean blue from Scale 75. These things, well, as you're probably guessing, I'm a bit of a brush licker. I don't recommend that to anybody, but it helps me keep a point on my brush, and it's something I've grown up with and used all my life. This tastes like emulsion. Don't recommend it. It's horrible, but it's a fantastic paint. Very, very matte though. And then we've got Scale 75 white in here as well. We just add a 50-50 mix on our palette, and we make a thin wash up. Add some of your flow improver on there, and we get it into our area like this. And then we find the areas, and you work out which direction your light's going to be coming from. So for a scenery piece, it's usually from the top. we're going to basically along all your chips and scratches that you've put, you just put a small highlight of your peel or color, so that you can see there we're already starting to see some depth in what we've already done. So around our little bullet mark there, and what we do is we go over the whole lot and we underline the larger of the chunks for the most part. Now, one of the things I have found is that if you get most of the big chunks and some of the smaller ones, sorry about that, some of the smaller ones, you should end up with quite a nice looking effect. Like along here we've got some little dots, and this is very time consuming, but it's when we do the other effects, we do exactly the same thing with those as well, because this paint has been chipped off, revealing what's underneath, and so would stand a little proud of the surface. Right, and once we've done everything like that, now if you notice, I'm also got a piece of black cartridge paper underneath me here. One of the things I've found, I don't know if the rest of you guys are the same, but if you're painting for a long period of time under lights, it can strain your eyes a bit. You can start getting tired very, very quickly. And I have found that putting something black and non-reflective on the table underneath lets me see the colours I'm putting down better, because I'm not getting that glare from my light bouncing back up into my eyes. You can buy large packs of this stuff on eBay for £5–10 for the A1 size. Just take a look around, see what you can find for yourselves. But it will save you a lot of eye strain. It'll let you paint longer, and you'll get truer colours because everything's not bleached out by the light bouncing back off a surface underneath it. Now, I'll come back to you when all this is done, because as you can see, it's already starting to be picked up and starting to look a little bit more deep. Once we've got this all done, we'll come back and I'll show you the result of this, and then we'll do a little bit of basic streaking, and I'll show you a couple of products you might not have seen that speed things up for you and make life very, very simple. So I'll be back in a couple of minutes. I'll bring this with me. The joys of the internet means you'll see it almost straight away. Okay, talk to you soon. Alright guys, we're back. Right, so paint is dried. I've managed to do all the chipping underneath, underlining for you, and then give it a quick coat of matte varnish or satin varnish. Either of the two will do fine. And I've used a little bit of Vallejo Model Air Steel. The Model Air metal paints are absolutely fantastic. Very, very, very finely ground pigments, and they brush really, really, really well. And I just mixed that with a little bit of the Secret Weapon Old Oil, just to make it a little bit greasier. And this is the final result. Now, I'm not sure how well this is picking up at the minute. Let me see. There we go. So you can see now that the chips that are on there look a lot deeper, have a lot more strength to them, and it's already starting to look like it's been through through its battles. Now, the main problem I've got with this so far is it's too clean. Right, we'll be doing the same technique next on the other ones we do as well. But this is a product that I didn't know about until not long ago, and I had it right in front of me a second ago. Here we go. This is the Ultimate Weathering Wash, Dark Dirt. Now, this is a very weird product. It's a clay-based wash. And when you first use it, as you can see in there, it breaks up. Well, actually, if I can see to the bottom, it breaks up a little bit in the cup. So you need to stir it around. That's the reason I've got a large brush. Now these brushes are pennies on eBay. They don't cost much at all, but always go for sable brushes where you can. And before using it, also make sure you shake up your canister, your bottle of dark dirt as well, and get all that pigment, or all that clay pigment mixed in. Now this bit, when you're working on a model that you've got really nicely done and it looks beautiful, can be very, very scary, because you load your brush and just slap it on. Literally just slather it onto the model. And you're sitting thinking to yourself as you're doing it, I'm ruining the model. I've just spent an hour underlining chips. I've spent half an hour doing all the chipping on it. I've got it looking beautiful. And now it looks like weathered crap. Well, there is a magic to this stuff. Now, we'll let it dry off slightly. And it does take a little while to dry. But as it's drying, you can start stippling it in to get more coverage. And make sure we get it into all the cracks and crevices like you would with a normal wash. But this stuff you don't have to be careful with, because as it's a clay-based wash, you can take it back off really, really easily using just water. So you can see where it pulls away from the underlying paint. Just go back over it. And you keep working this until you're happy with where it is. And then you let it dry. Yes, this will actually be left to dry. So it's no longer looking as shiny and as new, but it has got into all the cracks and crevices. It has got into all the panel lines on here. And what that'll do is it will darken down those areas for you. And the other thing about this as well is if at the end of it you don't like the end result, because it's clay based, you can go and run it under a tap and wash it off. You can always reactivate it until you put a coat over the top of it or you varnish it. Right, so we'll let that dry. We'll come back and we'll take a look and you can see what it looks like when all the drying has done and it's starting to do its stuff. Okay, we'll be back soon. Okay guys, we're back, and now this is dried. You can see it looks like a little bit of a mess, to say the least. But this is where the magic of this stuff comes in. Now, we've just got a little bit of normal water. I'm using distilled water because it's what I've got upstairs. And I don't fancy going down 2 flights of stairs to try and find some normal tap water. But this will do. And then you get yourself a cotton bud. Dip it in. And this is the important bit. Take most of the water back out so it's damp. Not wet, just damp. And then we start taking it off. Now, we're wanting it to go in one specific direction, because that'll leave runs and tide marks down where rainfall would come down and wash the grime from the above structure down over the piece that we've got here. Just take your time with it. And as you see, it comes off quite nicely, but leaves that nice grimy look that we're looking for here. That's the whole thing. These will not be overly well maintained. This is what we're going to be using for vehicles that have been out in the field for a long time. And always try and pull the pigment from the wash in a downward direction. Now, all the work we've done with the chipping is still there, but now that's been tinted as well for us. So it looks like that damage and weathering has been there all along, and the dirt and grime of everything has built up over time afterwards. And it also has the added effect that it panel lines for us. So you can see that looks grimy, dirty, and a bit of a mess, but you just keep working it. You can even use kitchen roll. So again, wet your kitchen roll, dab it off, and just pull down. Now this can be a little cheaper than using cotton buds, but I prefer cotton buds, to be honest. And that gives us a nice grimy, dirty, which actually looks a lot more grimy and dirty on screen than it does in real life, which is quite strange. But we'll just keep taking off the excess. Wiping down as always. Even if you go across, remember to go back across it and wipe down. And we will end up with runs, dirt, but our chips still show up. All the grime, all the dirt is there, and we keep working it back and forward until we're happy with how it looks. Now, this is just a matter of taste as well. Just take your time and go back and forward over it. Alright, so once that's done, and once it's to the point that you're happy with it, I'll just grab some more kitchen roll. Once you're happy with it, it's still a little too much for me, but we'll move on to the next little thing we're going to be using. Now, you can see there as well, it's even framed in our pistons for us, which is quite nice. Anything that makes life easy, anything that speeds stuff up for us is a good thing. Now, the whole idea behind these videos for you is not to do showpieces, not to do things that are Golden Demon winning standard. I've not got there yet myself. I've been doing this 20 odd years. This is just to get you on the tabletop with things that you're happy to have on the tabletop with you. Now that's looking a lot better now. That's looking a lot more like what we're looking for. So you imagine a full building full of this, and you've got the idea of what this stuff is capable of. Now, this little bottle will last you for ages. It's a really, really good product. Easily available on eBay. And as I say, if I didn't like this now, I could take it downstairs, run it under a warm tap, and wipe off all the rest of it with just a piece of tissue. Right, the next thing we've got now. Rust is something that a lot of people struggle with, including myself, until I found this. Now, this is the new version of it. It used to be called Model Mates. It's now produced by a company called Dirty Down. Now, the original is this one. So, you can see they've pretty much look the same label wise, but completely different bottles. Now this is an all-in-one solution. This is all you need for rust. Whereas with pigments you need different shades of pigment, you need different kinds of paints underneath. This stuff is like painting magic. Now it's an alcohol based paint, which means it dries very quickly, and as you can see it's like a dark reddish brown in the pot, But if I put this over just on that, again, doesn't matter that I've gone over the sides because I want the rust to bleed. And then as it dries, it gets a little thicker and you can stipple into it to give you texture. And as it dries, it starts to change color and starts to change texture and becomes rust. So now you get your nice powdered, if it'll focus, hello, there we go. Now on there you can see brush strokes and things, but when we go over it a few times, those go away. And you just layer it on, let it dry. And once it dries, we have a very natural, very realistic rust, if it will ever focus on it. You'll get the idea in a second. Anyway, that stuff can also be combined with this. It's a rust texture paint from Vallejo. Now, again, the downside to this is it's expensive. But a bottle will last you a long, long time if you put the lid back on. Now, it used to be $5.95 a bottle when it was made by Model Mates. Now that it's made by Dirty Down. Dirty Down is an American company, I think, that mainly do prop work. They do weathering for things like Game of Thrones, for costumes, for props in the background and things, using this. And using the other stuff that originally came from Model Mates. I was a bit disappointed to find that Model Mates had gone the way of the dodo. But Vallejo make a rust texture. Now this is a thick and grainy dark brown paint. And to be honest, it does not look great. But then again, it's not meant to. This is meant to give you that corroded, flaky rust look. Whereas the rust on this side, which again has gone out of focus, there we go, a little bit better, will actually look like real rust, unfortunately, under this light. And this camera, which I will need to upgrade by the looks of it, it doesn't look brilliant, but it looks good in person. Right, now what we will do is we'll take our rust texture, our actual rust from Dirty Down, and put it over the texture paint. That was way, way, way too much. I did say I'd show you the mistakes as well as the good stuff, so we will let that settle in. And the other good stuff about this as well is just like the dirt wash that we put on, this stuff is water soluble. So again, if you don't like it, just get a cotton bud or a piece of kitchen roll, dampen it down, and you can wipe it back off and get yourself back down to the silver underneath. Again, this will be water soluble until you decide you want it fixed. And when you fix it, all you do is varnish it and it is done. So you can add as much or as little of this as you want. Now on this one, I just want a little bit on the upper and lower ends, so you can see that I'm getting a bit of an effect on there. I'll do the same on the other side because we want this to look quite good for this. And I'll try and add some actual photographs to the video so you can actually see it better, because at the minute it doesn't show up very well. Until I can get a better camera, this is what I'm stuck with. But the whole thing about this channel is to do what we can with what we've got. Now, the Vallejo weathering effects run at about a £5 a pop. Again, yep, £5 a pop. Now, this I've had over a year, and it's still 99% full. This I've had about 6 months. Again, mostly full. And this is about 3 years. And this one's starting to run low now, but that's the joys of something that works. You want to keep going back to it and back to it, because it gives you an effect you can rely on. And that will give us our basic rust on door frames. Again, take off what we don't want just by wetting the brush and running it along. And that gives it an unused and rusted down look. Now, the last thing we've got that we're going to be playing with is a little bit of the AK Interactive weathering washes, or the streaking grimes and weathering grimes. Right, now, so on here we have enamel wash for blue-brown vehicles and streaking grime for dark yellow vehicles. Now, those are suggestions only. Doesn't have to be dark brown, it doesn't have to be blue, it doesn't have to be any colour. You find something that works, use it. Again, these cost a little to get in, but once you've got them, they last for ages. And what we're going to do with these is we're going to accentuate the rain streaks that we had earlier on from these. So places where rain would build up, we just draw it in and let it run down. And we sketch in where we want moisture buildup to come from, and we draw it down. And again, just like the weathering one, the dark dirt wash, pardon me, I can't speak really well today. You're looking at it as you put it on and going, are you sure that's right? Because it looks to yourself like you're wasting paint and ruining a model. And I'm going to show you in a second that you're not. Again, this is one of those ones where patience and faith will work. Alright, so the first colour that we're using is down. And it doesn't have to be these colours. The streaking grimes, just get the ones that you will have the most use for. Like this one is, oh, that's the blue one. The brown blue one for blue vehicles. Oh, I've thrown a little nut in this just to act as an agitator. And it has been a little while since I've used this one, hence the reason that I now have a skin over the top of mine. There we go. Nothing like getting messy when you're doing your hobby. And we can use the lid of this just to pull the paint out of. Get a point on your brush. Pick up some of your pigment or your wash, and again draw it down. Vary the thicknesses and look for where water would naturally run off. So in places like in here where you've got the joins between metal and where the metal itself splits, where gravity would pull water down from. And across here. And what we'll do afterwards is we will go back and re-establish some of the sharper highlights for the chips once we are happy with how the weathering has come out for us. Now this stuff is an enamel base. Now what I would usually do is I would varnish beforehand, but since we're doing all the weathering techniques at once, it doesn't really make that much of a difference on this, because once I'd done the chipping, I varnished anyway, remember? So that will protect the chipping that we've already done. Right, now next thing I'll need is I'm going to try one of the new brushes that we got from Meg Jimenez in the latest asset drop box. So bear with me a second, I'll see where I've put it, if I can remember where it has gone. If not, I shall just grab another brush and use it instead. It looks like it's the other brush instead. Right. And airbrush cleaners or thinners. Sorry about this, guys. I thought I was prepared. I guess I wasn't as prepared as I thought I was. Right. Here we go. A little bit of Humbrol thinners. Right, we're back. Now, these dry quite quickly, being enamel. Or for being enamel, should I say, because enamel usually takes quite a little while to dry. But this, we'll just use a little bit of thinners in there. What we need is a decent thickish brush. What shall we use? What shall we use? We'll use another one of the Pro Arts. Again, get your brush tipped, and what we're now going to do is wet our brush and dry it back off again on our kitchen towel. And then we start feathering in those streaks. Again, keeping the direction of pull in the same direction. And we're taking a lot of that paint back off, but it's not a wet brush, it's a damp brush. So this will pull the paint and blend it into the edges. It'll soften out the edges, and it's quite a subtle effect, but it shows where water will have run and pulled the dirt downwards with it. So again, a damp, not wet, brush, and pull it down. Just feather those edges out. Now, to feather them out, it just basically means making them blend out a little bit more. It's using the moisture in the brush to reactivate the paint, and then the paint will leach into the moisture that you're putting down. And it will help soften all the edges and give you the pulls and runs and streaks and grime that you're looking for. And this step isn't overly necessary because we've used the dark dirt, but this just helps pull in some extra rain marks, extra rust down for yourself as well. Right, so we'll just remember to get them all. It's nothing worse than finishing a model, varnish it, taking a look at it, and then realizing that you have really strong tide marks where you've pulled your paint down. Like, I usually forget one or two. So if you can, work on a small area of your model first and soften those in. And as you see, the products we use aren't the most expensive on the planet. See, now we've got those nice streaks running down. They're not the most expensive. They may seem it at first when you first buy them, but they last for a long, long time. Now, what we have here now is, once this starts to dry out, you can see here that's a little sharp. There's a little too defined. You can go back in again. Just soften it out. Pull it downwards. And that will give us our streaks. So you can see it's all starting to come together really well now. Now, the door itself, we're not sure the material it would have been made of, but we're going to add a little bit of extra colour to this in certain areas. Now for this we're going to use another one of the paints that came with Asset Drop. Something I'd never seen before, but these are Mission Models Transparent Light Rusts. Now you have to shake the buggery out of these things because the pigment settles really well to the bottom. But once you've got it shaken, you will see that I go through an awful lot of shot glasses. Now that's a very nice rusty brown red. But we're not going to use it like that. What we're going to do is we are going to thin it down to almost a glaze. So it's a very thin paint. Now in this I have some airbrush thinners from VMS Models. Now, airbrush thinners can be expensive. Can be very, very expensive, and that's very thick at the moment. But the reason I use VMS is because one bottle, which is the equivalent price of the Games Workshop airbrush thinners or airbrush cleaner, will make 5 bottles of thinner because it's a dilutable. Right. So with this, we just glaze in some areas. And we pull the glaze to where we want it to be. So draw off the excess. So along here. And what we're trying to do with this is we're trying to alter the color very slightly around where water builds up and where the rust would settle and start to leach into the surrounding area. And then we use some normal water and we blend in the edges of it so that it's not too stark a line. And try and keep it quite random as well, because as we all know, rust is random. We know roughly where it's going to be, but it does its own thing when it gets there. Again, put a little extra into areas where it will have gathered, and again you can streak this stuff as well, but you keep it thin because you can always go back and thicken it up if you are, and put another layer on if you want to. It's very hard to take a layer off when you've got too much. Right. Again, with a thick brush or a large brush, just pull it down. This is just standard water this time. And always remember the direction that water will be flowing. And that will have left just a very slight tint to the area. Now again, this is going to be more for your hero vehicles, for your stuff that you're going to spend a little bit more time on. But you can build these up and you can combine these paints very easily with some great effects. And if you want to go on another one, this is the AK Interactive Rust Streaks. So, as you can tell, I like the AK Interactive stuff because it works. So for this stuff, I will be going from where, again, where the most water will gather. So the deepest parts. So, and we can find where we have put our deepest chips, and our little bullet hole there, and pull it down from that as well. Again, don't overdo it too much. These can come back off again with our thinner. So we shall put the lid back on. I've lost count of how many times I've knocked paints over, so I'll try and make that a habit. Dry off our brush full of thinners and feather it in. See, now what I was saying about forgetting places earlier on, I hadn't done anything with these. I'd missed these out completely. And we draw these down. And blend everything in to the surrounding paint so that we've just got a nice, gentle, subtle effect that helps build things up to a rusted, battered, aged and dirty door. Now there are a lot more things we can do to this, which we will go over in a later date, but the last thing we're going to do on this particular one is we're going to go back to our original base color that we used, mixed with a little bit of white, and this was the highlight color for our chips. So we will go back in and we will find some of the most prominent chips that we want to accentuate, like again this bullet hit, and we shall just re-establish those. It'll also let us see if there's any bits that we need to feather further. Sounds like the start of a tongue twister. Yep, and another bit that I missed. There we go. Pull these down further still. And we just re-establish a few of the highlights, not too many. Because you don't want the highlights to start looking clean. But you just re-establish a few of them. Oops, sorry, I didn't realize it was off camera there. And just give ourselves a little bit of contrast here and there on things we've already done. And I shall show you in a second a quick idea. And around sharp edges, add a little bit more to act as chips and glints. It's almost like edge highlighting, but in very, very small amounts. So let's see if I can get a little bit more in frame for you. There we go. So let's see, and we can get these out of the way, and those. And you can see now, around, especially around near the bullet hole, if this will focus, come on, be nice to me. It should apparently this is the best camera for doing painting on, but you'll get the idea. There you go, of how the door now looks. Now that's a very simple way to add age to your vehicles, terrain. This one's a little extreme, but then again, this is Battle Damage Minis, and we are working on making things look like they've been through the mill several hundred times. In the dark future, in the grim future, the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, and war is not clean. War is messy. War is dirty and war is muddy. Now, this will finish this tutorial, and we're going to replicate something very similar to this using the hairspray, and then we're going to do the same with the chipping fluids. Now, to be honest, the only thing that's different in what we're going to do is how we get the chips in the first place. The weathering fluids and the hairspray give a lot more randomness to it, which can be nice. This is using the sponge is my favorite way of doing things because it gives me more control over where things are going to go, over where the chips need to be, and where the highlights are going to actually look best in high contrast when you finish off highlighting everything back up again. Now, I've only done this very, very briefly, but working on the whole thing through again to get all those highlights re-established, you'll end up with a very sharp contrast on certain areas that just pull the eye in a little bit. Okay, so I'll leave this one for here. I will try and see if I can work out how to add photographs into this, and we shall add some photos in so that you can actually see the finished product a little better than the camera shows. And I finally worked out how to flip the camera, so we are evolving as we go. Anyway, guys, I shall talk to you later. Have a good day, and remember to keep on painting. Don't be afraid of it. Just keep doing it. See you later. Take care.